I never thought a simple business trip to Denver would turn into the most satisfying airport drama I'd ever witnessed. But sometimes life has a way of putting the most entitled people exactly where they belong. And this airport Karen was about to learn that lesson the hard way. It started innocently enough. I was sitting quietly in my assigned window seat at Gate B12, reviewing some legal documents for a client meeting the next morning. The departure board showed our flight was delayed by 30 minutes, which gave me extra time to prepare. As a federal prosecutor specializing in fraud cases, I've learned to use every spare moment productively. The gate area was relatively quiet, with maybe 40 passengers scattered across the blue plastic chairs, most of them absorbed in their phones or books. That's when she appeared. "Excuse me, but you're in my seat." The voice was sharp, demanding, cutting through the ambient airport noise like a knife. I looked up to see a woman in her mid-50s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, designer handbag clutched like a weapon, and the kind of expression that screamed entitlement. She was pointing directly at me with one perfectly manicured finger. I glanced down at my boarding pass, then back up at her with a polite smile. "I'm sorry, but this is seat 14A. My boarding pass shows 14A as well." I held up the pass, the gate agent's stamp clearly visible. Her eyes narrowed. "Well, there's obviously been some mistake. I specifically requested a window seat when I booked this flight 3 weeks ago. I have a medical condition that requires me to sit by the window." She waved her own boarding pass in the air, but kept it angled away from my view. "I understand that can be frustrating," I replied, maintaining my calm professional tone. "Perhaps we should check with the gate agent. I'm sure they can help sort this out." But Airport Karen wasn't interested in reasonable solutions. "No, you need to move. Now, I'm a Platinum Elite member with this airline, and I've been flying with them for over 20 years. I know my rights." Her voice had risen several decibels, and I noticed other passengers beginning to glance in our direction. I remained seated, keeping my voice level. "Ma'am, I completely understand your frustration, but I purchased this specific seat and have the boarding pass to prove it. I'd be happy to walk over to the gate agent with you so we can resolve this properly." That's when she really lost it. "Are you seriously going to sit there and argue with me?" she shrieked, her face turning an alarming shade of red. "Do you have any idea who I am? My husband is a senior partner at Morrison, Blake and Associates. We could buy and sell people like you 10 times over." The Morrison, Blake and Associates reference caught my attention immediately. It was a mid-tier law firm that handled mostly personal injury cases, and I'd had professional dealings with them before. Nothing that would explain this woman's sense of superiority. But the name-dropping was typical entitled passenger behavior. Other travelers were starting to stare openly now, some pulling out their phones. In today's world, airport drama spreads faster than wildfire on social media, and this woman was about to become the star of her own viral Karen meltdown video. "Ma'am," I said quietly, "I really think we should just ask the gate agent to check both our boarding passes. It'll take 2 minutes, and we can clear this up without any fuss." But she was beyond reason now. "No, I shouldn't have to prove anything to you. You're obviously trying to scam your way into a better seat, and I won't stand for it." "Security." She began waving frantically at a TSA officer who was walking past our gate area. The security officer, a patient-looking man in his 40s, approached with the weary expression of someone who dealt with far too many airport Karen situations. "What seems to be the problem here?" Before I could speak, she launched into her sob story. "This man is sitting in my assigned seat and refusing to move. I have a medical condition that requires me to sit by the window, and he's being completely unreasonable about it. I think he might be trying to scam the airline somehow." I felt my jaw clench slightly at the accusation, but I maintained my composure. Years of dealing with hostile witnesses and difficult opposing counsel had taught me the value of staying calm under pressure. "Officer," I said, reaching for my boarding pass, I have my ticket right here showing seat 14A. I'd be happy to show you. But Airport Karen wasn't done. Don't believe whatever fake ticket he shows you. I've heard about people who print fake boarding passes to steal better seats. Check his ID. Make sure he's even supposed to be on this flight. The accusation stung. Here I was, a federal prosecutor who'd spent the last 15 years putting fraudsters behind bars, being accused of the very crimes I fought against. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so infuriating. The security officer looked between us, clearly trying to assess the situation. Sir, do you mind if I take a look at your boarding pass and ID? Of course not, I replied, pulling out both documents. I handed them over while Airport Karen stood there with her arms crossed, wearing a smug expression that suggested she'd already won some imaginary victory. The officer examined my documents carefully, then looked back at me. Everything appears to be in order here. Sir, this boarding pass shows you're assigned to seat 14A. He turned to the woman. Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass as well? For the first time since this ordeal began, Airport Karen hesitated. I will, of course, but I shouldn't have to prove anything when this man is clearly in the wrong. She fumbled in her oversized purse, taking longer than necessary to produce her ticket. When she finally handed it over, I caught a glimpse of what was printed on it. Even from my angle, I could see something was off. The formatting looked different from standard airline tickets, and the paper quality seemed wrong. The security officer studied her boarding pass for a long moment, his expression growing more serious. Ma'am, there seems to be an issue with your ticket. Could you tell me where you purchased this? What do you mean, an issue? Her voice cracked slightly, the first sign that her confidence was wavering. I bought it online 3 weeks ago. Just like I told you. Mum, this boarding pass appears to be ... irregular. The barcode format doesn't match our system, and the airline logo is slightly pixelated, which suggests it may have been printed from an unauthorized source. The color drained from Airport Karen's face. Around us, I could see other passengers leaning in, their phones definitely recording now. This airport drama was about to become a full-blown Karen gets owned moment. That's impossible, she stammered. I got it from the airline's website. There must be some mistake with your scanner or something. But the security officer was already speaking into his radio. Gate B12, requesting a gate agent and supervisor to verify a questionable boarding pass. That's when I realized this travel nightmare was about to become someone else's problem entirely. But I also realized I had information that might be relevant to what was unfolding. You see, 3 months earlier, my office had prosecuted a case involving fake boarding passes, a sophisticated operation where criminals would create realistic-looking tickets to gain access to secure areas of airports, sometimes for theft, sometimes for other criminal activities. Part of my preparation for that case had involved learning exactly how to identify fraudulent airline documents, and Airport Karen's boarding pass had every hallmark of the fake tickets we'd seen in that prosecution. Within minutes, a gate agent and her supervisor arrived, along with another security officer. The small crowd that had gathered was now substantial, with passengers from neighboring gates drifting over to see what was happening. Ma'am, the gate supervisor said, we're going to need to verify your ticket through our system. Could you provide the confirmation number and the credit card used for purchase? Airport Karen's panic was becoming more visible by the second. The confirmation number should be on the ticket. And I used my husband's card, so I don't have it with me. The supervisor typed something into her handheld device, then frowned. Ma'am, this confirmation number doesn't exist in our system. And according to our records, there are no tickets issued for anyone by your name on this flight. The Airport Karen's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, anger, fear, and finally, a desperate attempt at indignation. This is ridiculous. There must be an error in your system. I demand to speak to someone in charge. That's when I made my decision. As a federal prosecutor, I had a duty to report suspected criminal activity, and what I was witnessing looked exactly like the fraud scheme we'd prosecuted just months earlier. I stood up slowly and addressed the security supervisor. "Excuse me, officer, I think there's something you should know." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out my federal credentials. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Mitchell with the District of Colorado. 3 months ago, my office prosecuted a case involving fraudulent boarding passes used to gain unauthorized access to secure airport areas. The immediate change in everyone's demeanor was striking. The security officers straightened up. The gate agents looked suddenly more alert, and Airport Karen's face went completely white. The boarding pass this woman presented has several characteristics consistent with the fraudulent documents in that case. I continued. The paper quality, the pixelated logo, and the barcode format all match the pattern we saw in our investigation. The security supervisor took my credentials, examined them carefully, then looked at me with newfound respect. "Ma'am, we'll need to investigate this further. Would you be willing to provide a statement about what you've observed?" "Absolutely," I replied. "But I should mention that using fake boarding passes to gain access to secure areas of an airport is a federal crime under 49 U.S.C. Section 46505. It carries a potential penalty of up to 20 years in prison." Airport Karen made a sound that was half gasp, half whimper. "Wait, no, you don't understand. I can explain everything." But it was too late for explanations. The security team was already moving into protocol mode. "Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us for questioning. Attempting to use fraudulent documents to gain access to a secure area is a serious federal offense." As they began to escort her away, Airport Karen finally broke down completely. "Please, I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted a window seat. My friend told me about this website where you could make boarding passes that looked real, just to get better seats. I didn't know it was illegal." The confession hung in the air like a bombshell. Several passengers gasped audibly, and I could see phones capturing every moment of this airport justice playing out in real time. "You used a fake boarding pass just to steal someone's seat." The gate supervisor looked genuinely shocked. In all her years of dealing with entitled passengers, this was clearly a first. Airport Karen nodded miserably. "My friend said airlines overbook anyway, so it wouldn't hurt anyone. She said she'd done it dozens of times and never got caught. I just. I hate middle seats so much, and when I saw this flight only had middle seats available, I thought. You thought you'd commit a federal crime instead of paying for a seat upgrade. I finished for her, or booking an earlier flight that had window seats available." The security supervisor shook his head in disbelief. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempting to use fraudulent documents to gain unauthorized access to a secure transportation facility." As they read Airport Karen her rights, the crowd of passengers burst into spontaneous applause. I heard someone shout, "That's what you get for being such a nightmare," and another voice calling out, "Karen meltdown complete." The gate agent approached me with an apologetic expression. "Ma'am, I am so sorry for what you had to endure. On behalf of the airline, I'd like to offer you an upgrade to first class for the inconvenience." I smiled and shook my head. "That's very kind, but not necessary. I'm perfectly happy with my window seat, though I do appreciate the gesture." As Airport Karen was led away in handcuffs, still sobbing and protesting that she didn't know it was such a big deal, the crowd began to disperse. Several passengers approached me to thank me for standing up to her, and one elderly gentleman said, "Young lady, you handled yourself with real class." That woman got exactly what she deserved. The flight boarded without further incident, and as I settled into my legitimately assigned window seat, I couldn't help but reflect on the absurdity of what had just occurred. This woman had been so entitled, so convinced of her own importance, that she'd committed a federal crime rather than accept a middle seat or pay for an upgrade. As we taxied for takeoff, my phone buzzed with a text from my colleague back in Denver. Just saw a video on Twitter of some airport drama. Looks like it happened at your gate. Woman with fake boarding pass got arrested. Hope your flight wasn't delayed. I chuckled and typed back, flight's on time. And the woman with the fake boarding pass picked the wrong person to mess with. As we lifted off into the Colorado sky, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not because I'd enjoyed watching someone get arrested, but because justice had been served. Airport Karen had learned that actions have consequences, that entitlement can't override the law, and that sometimes the person you're trying to intimidate knows exactly what they're talking about. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I received a call from the FBI agent handling Airport Karen's case. It turned out that her friend, who had told her about the fake boarding pass website, was part of a larger criminal network that had been under investigation for months. Airport Karen's arrest had provided the breakthrough they needed to shut down the entire operation. Your quick thinking at the airport helped us crack a case we'd been working on for 8 months, the agent told me. This network was responsible for hundreds of incidents of airport fraud across 12 states. They were making thousands of dollars selling fake boarding passes to people who wanted better seats or access to airport lounges. The final tally was impressive: 17 arrests, including the mastermind behind the fake boarding pass website. Airport Karen, as it turned out, was one of their smallest customers. But her public meltdown and subsequent arrest had been the domino that brought down the entire criminal enterprise. 3 months after the incident, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Airport Karen herself, writing from the federal detention center where she was awaiting sentencing. Dear Ms. Mitchell, it read, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this letter. What I did at the airport was wrong, and the way I treated you was inexcusable. I've had a lot of time to think about my behavior, and I'm ashamed of who I was that day. I want you to know that I'm getting help for my anger issues and my sense of entitlement. I hope someday I can become the kind of person who handles conflict with the grace and professionalism you showed that day. Thank you for doing your job, even when it meant holding me accountable for my crimes. I kept that letter, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the most difficult moments in our lives can lead to the most important growth. Airport Karen had faced the consequences of her actions, but she'd also apparently learned from them. As for me, I still travel frequently for work, and I always book my preferred seat well in advance. I've never had another encounter quite like that one, though I've certainly seen my share of airport drama over the years. But whenever I'm sitting in a window seat, looking down at the clouds below, I'm reminded of that day when an entitled passenger's travel nightmare became a lesson in justice, accountability, and the importance of treating others with respect. Sometimes the person sitting quietly in the seat you want in just another traveler. Sometimes there's someone who's spent their career fighting for justice, someone who knows the law inside and out, someone who won't be intimidated by raised voices and false accusations. Airport Karen learned that lesson the hard way. But in the end, I think we both came away from that experience as better people, her through consequences and growth, and me through the reminder that standing up for what's right, even in small moments, can have far-reaching effects. The next time you're tempted to make someone else's day worse because you're having a bad day yourself, remember Airport Karen. Remember that the person you're targeting might be exactly the wrong person to mess with. And remember that in our connected world, your worst moments can become everyone's entertainment in a matter of minutes. Choose kindness instead. Choose patience. Choose to be the person you'd want to encounter when you're having your own difficult day, because you never know when someone might be recording, and you definitely never know when the quiet person in the window seat might be a federal prosecutor who's seen your exact scam before. Airport Karen found that out the hard way. Don't be like Airport Karen.